Titan Quest 2 is finally here in early access. We have the prologue and Act 1 available, and I have been absolutely addicted. Today I'm excited to talk to you about my Stormblade. It's really more of a Poison Rogue build. I have a few points in the Storm, but I guess technically it is a Stormblade. Anyway, the big highlight here in the build, if you've been playing Titan Quest 2, let's go ahead and jump into the game. Just went ahead and jumped here into Titan Quest 2. And of course I made a video showcasing this build, and we had someone comment that a guide would be cool. So let's go ahead and jump into it here. The main ability we're going to be focusing on is Lethal Strike. This by default has a 4.3 second cooldown, but there's ways that we can basically spam this ability for really high damage. The bread and butter for this build is going to be, you guessed it, poison damage. Now poison in Titan Quest 2 is actually not an ailment in itself. Poison is the actual hit. The ailment that poison can apply is actually called Plague, and by default you can get 10 stacks of Plague, and this is going to become really important to know as we dive in. So our very first part with Lethal Strike, in order to get that cooldown reduction, is going to be from using one of our core abilities here. Your primary attack, this is your starting ability. Yes, you can actually level it up. You're going to want to put 1 point right here into Gain Flow. This is actually going to unlock the flow mechanic, and if you're not familiar with what that is, this will enable you to have a 20% chance to gain 1 stack of flow. You can only have 1 stack of flow. It's a 20% chance, so attack speed is going to be important, so you can potentially get more of those. There are other ways to gain flow with this build, but it just made the setup feel a little bit more clunky, so this is kind of the route that I stuck to kind of keep it simple and straightforward. So what this is going to do is, while you're attacking, you have that 20% chance to gain flow. Okay, what does that do and why do I care? Well, I got you covered right here over on Lethal Strike. You can see the base part of the ability. If this skill consumes flow, the cooldown is refresh. So if you consume a stack of flow, you can instantly cast it again. The other part with Lethal Strike as well is if you kill a target with the ability, there's no cooldown. So if you're in a giant pack of mobs, you're going to want to target the lower health monsters first, but you're also going to want to be putting your mark for death on them before you hit them with this ability. Again, we're going to cover it all. Before we talk about mark for death, one other way that you can kind of help with the cooldown reduction for your Lethal Strike is getting cooldown reduction. I believe it's actually called cooldown rate. You can find on a few item slots as well, although that's less important. It's more important here to go for that mark of death. Let's go ahead and talk about Mark for Death. This ability you're going to want to be using all the time for that cooldown reduction. This ability isn't really that great. I mean, we're speccing into it here with the weaken modifier just so that the enemies do less damage to you. It's kind of a nice little survival tool. So I've actually tried out Poison Burst and Poison Explosion. These two are not my favorite, just because Poison Burst will actually consume your mark, and you don't want that to happen. You want your mark to always be on your target, so that you are getting that cooldown reduction from your mark focus modifier over on your Lethal Strike. One other side note too, with the Poison Burst and Poison Explosion, they're actually really great for clearing giant packs of monsters. They're just not the best for those longer boss fights, basically. Like if you're one-shotting monsters, definitely take it to help out with those map clears. This is literally going to make it so that this ability is going to do 75% more damage against your marks. That's where, damage buffs come from. But more importantly here is you're going to recover 40% of the cooldown when you hit your mark target. Now, the thing to keep in mind with mark is it's not an AoE ability. It is a single target. And if you switch targets or accidentally hit the wrong targets that's not marked, these effects will not apply and you'll actually go into your 4-second cooldown on here. But in my experience, it's pretty rare for that to happen as long as you're, targeting the correct monster. It's pretty straightforward, I think. And that's the reason why you're going to want to always make sure you have your mark for death before you hit the target with your Lethal Strike. Now, you're not going to go like mark for death, Lethal Strike, mark again. You're not going to go back and forth. You're literally just going to mark them, and in theory and in practice, you'll be able to spam Lethal Strike. It's pretty freaking awesome. Now, one other thing to note here on Lethal Strike is we do pick up the Poison Explosion. Remember how I talked about Plague being the ailment that we were applying? It's super important for this. It's going to buff up our main ability even more. You can see right here, Poison Explosion makes it so that on hit you deal 105 poison damage plus 13 poison damage per Plague stack on a target. And it does this in a 4-meter radius. It's a nice splash AoE. Now, by default, you can get 10 stacks of Plague, but you can actually get that up to 20. In my current build, I've gotten it up to 17. I'm trying to figure out where to get the other 3 stacks from. So basically, with my current setup, I'm getting 17 stacks of Plague you're actually going to be doing an extra 221 flat poison damage, and then this is going to be further enhanced by your poison damage increases that we're going to talk about when we get to itemization. So those are kind of your two most important abilities here. The next one I want to talk about is preparation. This is an aura that you can use and toggle, and it'll seal your mana up to give you certain buffs. Now, by default, preparation is going to give you increased poison damage and increased physical damage. Poison damage is what we care about in this build. The two modifiers we're going to go for here is weapon coating and envenom. Envenom is going to give us weapon poison damage, and it's also going to convert our weapon damage into all poison damage. This is going to do, obviously scale all our damage and also give us hopefully more plague stacks more quickly. We're also going to grab that weapon coating, as I mentioned, for more poison weapon damage. And the other part of this as well is whenever you hit an enemy, you have a 50% chance to apply Plagued. Now, Plagued is massive. I think I may have already mentioned it here, but if I didn't, let me go ahead and point it out here again to you. It's that poison explosion. Yes, I did talk about this. This is where we're getting that extra damage per plague stack on the target. That's why this is so important here with that weapon coating. I'd probably take weapon coating first and then envenom second. The next ability here that I want to go ahead and talk about is Vanish. This is going to be a damage cooldown. This is going to give you 30% increased damage for 6 seconds, as well as movement speed. Movement speed is always nice. The cooldown by default, I believe, is 4 seconds, but I've spec'd into Lifesteal, and I might spec out of this and go into literally anything else, maybe Burst of Speed. I even thought about getting Flow Gain as well on here. I don't know. That one's probably not actually that good, but I'm going to be testing it here. Lifesteal I feel like is not that important because it's vitality damage and lifesteal increase. It just doesn't seem like it's quite worth it because it also adds on that 2.5 second cooldown. So, and I actually went ahead here and took out the lifesteal. So, hey, we got to talk about some options here. If you have a decent base lifesteal and you can actually increase it, that might be worth considering. But yeah, this is actually what I'm going to be running here is increased attack speed. And then you're also going to get movement speed that decays. More movement speed's even better. And then that flow gain as well, just so you can get an extra cast of your lethal strike. And then lastly, we will take the enhanced ailments. This is to increase that ailment chance and ailment power. The order I would spec into these modifiers would be flow gain, enhanced ailments, and lastly, burst of speed. Even though that attack speed is really great, maybe you want to go into that. You can do whatever order you really want to for yourself. Maybe in the future, I'll make a leveling guide video. If that's something you want to see for this build, let me know down in the comments. We already talked about Mark for Death, but now I want to go ahead and talk about our primary attack. I know I touched on this at the beginning of the video, but you can actually level this thing up and it provides quite a bit of things here. And just in case you didn't know, you can actually go over to the next page here. I didn't realize there was 2 pages until I was actually recording this. But we talked about with our primary attack, we're going to get that gain flow. We're also going to go into toxicity or 100% damage converted to poison damage. Poison damage rogue. It makes sense. On hit, you're going to deal poison damage equal to 35% of your weapon damage every second for 3 seconds, and this does not stack. The other thing we're going to grab here is enhanced ailments, and this is going to give us more base ailment chance, and this is added, which is huge. I'll show you here where to see your actual chance to apply ailments here in a moment. And you're also going to get more ailment chance as well. So this is absolutely going to be huge. And it was later into the game where I realized that I could actually play into this more. And I was really just looking at the Rogue and Storm skills. And then I realized there was a whole core tab as well. Pretty awesome. You can even look into Barrier and Dodge. I do have 1 point here into Barrier for Reflecting Guard. There's going to be some more points that I will be getting here since I'm only level 36. I'm only level 36 at the time of recording. So I'll probably put some more points into there. Basically, that just makes it for 2 seconds after you use your barrier, you'll reflect 40% of the damage taken as true damage. Now, that's kind of our last ability, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's barrier. I think everyone gets that ability from the start of the game, and it should be a defensive cooldown that you're always using. Maybe there's builds that don't use it, but you should always be using that. Now our aura with the preparation, that's a toggle ability. You want to make sure you have that on as well. Yeah, usually when I go into combat, I'm going to hit my vanish and then I'll hit my barrier. After that, we'll mark for death, and then we're going to spam lethal strike until the target dies. When they die, mark the next target, lethal strike, and just rinse and repeat. It's really, really, really a fun build. All right, I know I threw a lot at you there with the skill tree, but I want to take a step back here and I want to talk about ailments and how they work in this game. It's a little bit different, and I think it's worth pointing out here. So the way that you apply ailments is based off how much damage you actually do. And the more damage you do, the more of a chance you have to apply ailments. At least that's what it says here in the tutorial. Now, this even applies for critical strikes. You can actually see right here, critical strikes deal higher damage and have higher chance to apply ailments. I don't go for crit chance and crit damage with this build because it doesn't actually increase the damage of the ailment, just the chance to apply it. And we're actually getting that chance through other methods as well. But if you haven't yet, check out this tutorial, give it a read. There's some pretty cool information in here. And Plagued is the one we're going to be going for here. So you can actually check out your chance to apply an ailment over here in your offensive stats. It's right here under global ailment chance. You can see I have 163% ailment chance. So what that means, it's above 100%. So that means I'm going to always be applying the ailment, and then I have a 63% chance to apply a second ailment per hit. That's pretty awesome. And you can see right here, it even says that in the tutorial, ailment chance is above 100. You get an additional roll to get a second stack. So if it's above 200, like say you're 250%, which I think we will be once we get Act 2, Act 3, stuff like that, you have a chance to get 3 stacks in one hit. It would be absolutely insane. And I think for some of the, like, you know, obviously we only have access to Act 1 currently, but I think it could be pretty crazy when you get up there. But yeah, that's kind of how ailments work, and that's what I wanted to talk about with that. Let's see here. There are other mechanics here that I wanted to talk about. So with Plague, as I said, it only has a default limit of 10 stacks. Now you can increase that. As I said, I've gotten it up to 17. You're going to get 5 more maximum Plague stacks from this weapon right here. This weapon's not required for the build, especially early on. This one you get from, I found one that dropped from the boss over here, way up here, called Pan up here. If you've gotten that far, you can just farm that boss over and over. And I think the first one I ever found, I think I found from this boss here, which is actually what the little video I made that prompted this build guide. But I don't know, I've literally gotten so many others and I haven't seen it drop again from this boss. So if you're looking for that weapon, I recommend farming Pan. Is the boss that I recommend to farm. Now you can see mine is a higher level version because I was farming for it. When you first get it, it's probably not going to look like that. Here's my lower level version of my Fungus Log right here. Yeah, I have a level 16, 2 level 16 versions right here. So yeah, one of these dropped from that other hidden boss, the one I just showed you. And I don't remember where I got that second one from, to be honest with you, but yeah, this boss right here was where I found my very first one. So that will get us to 15 maximum Plague stacks. The other 2 stacks come from Deadly Affliction. You can see right here, it's one of the feats. You have to get this thing to level 6, and then you can pick up ailment amount to get 2 more maximum stacks to all ailments. So I'm wondering if there's more passives that give you more ailment counts or whatever, and maybe that would make it better than running the Stormblade that I am right now. Oh, that's something I'm going to actually note right now to look into. But at this point, I mean, I've done all the content that you can do right now in the game with this build, so I mean, I'm happy with it. And that brings me over to passives. When you very first start out with the Rogue, you're going to have access to these 2 bottom ones here, Deft Hands and Accuracy. I would go with Deft Hands right off the rip for increased damage and attack speed. Super important. After that, you're going to unlock these once you get however much divinity it is. I can't remember how much it is for your tier 2 because it's been a while, but you're going to be going for that ailment, that extra ailment stack here in Deadly Affliction. And remember, it is actually this feat right here that you have to grab. And then, you know, I'd go with poison damage, plague chance, and then eventually you can go up here for damage with weapon attacks. And then all the feats on these are what are really, really cool. So like when I first started, I would just look at the thing and see what it gave me. And then once you actually come into here and you see all the different choices you have, it's really quite wild. I'm thinking about getting rid of these 2 crit chances and crit damage. But I do like the increased damage. I'll probably just leave it as is, since the only other one, it's all crits here are only options. But anyway, these 2 over here, you're going for more crit chance, more attack speed. The attack speed's super important. And then your maximum ailments, ailment power. Ailment power is going to be a stat we're looking for on our gear. Over here on toxin distillation is plague chance, absolutely huge. Poison damage, absolutely huge. And then the last 2 here is your dismantling tactics, which is increased damage to your mark. And then when you kill an enemy, you deal vitality damage. Don't care about that. We just want that damage increase to your mark. It's just going to buff up that lethal strike even more. Damage with weapon attacks. Lethal strike is, in fact, a weapon attack as far as I know. So that's buffing that up as well. There's none other really that I liked in here. So I went over to Storm, I believe, and I put a few points here into energy regeneration. Just because, you know, using all these abilities that we've talked about here, you do run out of energy, but with a little bit of regen, it's nothing that you can't fix. Let's go ahead and talk about gear real quick. I'll just go ahead and show you the gear I have on. So we already talked about our Fungus Log. Again, this is a pretty rare drop. I mean, you have to grind, I think, for this. But hopefully RNG's on your side and you get it quicker than I did. But again, it's not required for this build. And in fact, you can actually dual wield certain poison weapons that you can get. I tried to hold on to a few to show off here in this video. So I actually got some monster infrequents here. These are like special drops from different types of monsters or something like that, I guess. But anyway, this one's a low level, level 14, and here's a higher level one. I think you can actually dual wield these here. Yeah, you can dual wield. So if you could find a really good higher level version of this, potentially it could compete with your Fungus Log. And actually, I don't think it would compete because the Fungus Log is higher, getting that 5 extra maximum stacks. But yeah, if you don't have access to this, you can look for, and it doesn't even have to be one of these monster infrequent items. I mean, they have even just yellow items that drop that give you poison damage here. You're just looking literally for the poison damage. And then for your affix rolls, you want anything related to ailment, power, ailment chance. You can even go for ailment duration if you want to. Attack speed's nice. And the other thing, and I don't think cooldown reduction can roll on a weapon, but if it can, correct me in the comments, because that would be good to know as well. I'm trying to save up a bunch of CDR stuff to see how much, how crazy I can get with it. But yeah, cooldown reduction is going to be a secondary kind of stat you're looking for on your gear, along with attack speed and, as I said, ailment duration. So when it comes to, that's kind of your weapon. When it comes to your armor, I go for resistances, and I think that's just because, like, I'm so used to action RPGs. Like, cap your resistances, like, that's just in my head, you know. And cap in this game is 60%. You can go beyond that through a couple different methods here, most notably. And I was actually going to point this out with the skills with a few extra points. I actually wanted to go into Storm Nimbus. This is another aura that you can use. Because in here you can get lightning resistance and cold resistance, and then that would take some pressure off my gearing. But I wanted to show you here lightning resistance, and you can get max. You can get up to plus, I believe it's plus 5% maximum lightning and cold resistance through this. So that's pretty cool too. But yeah, on your gear, yeah, I look for resistances. I need a better chest plate. You can find just raw attributes on these. Over here on my shoulders, these ones are a pretty powerful slot. So I've been doing a lot of farming. I actually have, we can see right here, almost 16 hours played on this character. That's pretty crazy, actually, for the very small amount of content in the game currently. But I've actually been saving up different types of gear. So I have ailment gear, resistance gear, and CDR. So yeah, over on your shoulders, as I said, this is a pretty important slot because you can get ailment chance. You can also get ailment power on your shoulders. I haven't seen them roll with both. Oh, I'm mistaken here. We have actually seen it here. I wonder if that's better. Mine currently has that. This one has lightning and fire. Maybe I need to look into that piece a little more. But yeah, over on your shoulders, you're looking for ailment chance, ailment power, and then double resistances, preferably. Over on your helmet, you can get cooldown reduction on your helmet. I think there's also, yeah, cooldown reduction, I think, is the big one on your helmet, and then your resistances. I can't remember if there was something else. Oh, health is another thing that I was looking for on helmets as well. But yeah, the big one's going to be cooldown If anyone knows like where I can find exactly what can roll on what slots of gear, I'd love to know that. But for now, that's kind of all I've really seen when it comes to helmets. You have some different. This helmet here has energy on it if you're having energy issues, which you shouldn't be. So yeah, I'd look for the CDR, the cooldown reduction. Over on your boots, you're going to want movement speed. That's #1 priority on your legs is your movement speed. Legs and boots is the same slot as far as I know. So these ones were really, this was one drop that like jumped out of my seat. I was so pumped for. Look at the infrequent modifier here. 14% increased poison damage. Super awesome. I was super pumped when I got this. But yeah, over on your pants, you're going to want to get movement speed, as I said. Resistances, whatever. You're also going to want over here on your arms, you're going to be looking for poison damage. Now I think you can get ailment chance and ailment power maybe. I guess I'm not too sure on arms. I guess I have some pretty cool triple resistance rolled right here. Some pretty cool triple resistance rolled arms, but yeah, I think the big thing on these is going to be poison damage and then resistances. So when it comes to ring, this is another valuable slot. I would go for poison damage, ailment power, as well as cooldown reduction. If you can find all three of those on a ring, that'd be pretty cool. I don't know if they have ailment chance on rings, but yeah, that would be what I'm going for on rings. Lastly, over on your belt, you're going to be wanting resistances and ailment power. You can also find ailment chance, ailment duration. I mean, by this point, you should know what you're looking for on all your gear. Anything related to ailments, anything related to poison, and then your resistances and cooldown reduction, attack speed. It's really, I mean, the game's not that overly complex in my opinion, but those are going to be the stats you're looking for on your gear. One other thing, and this is more just about just resistances and well, more so defenses and just staying alive here. I know I rambled quite a bit there on the gearing section, what stats to look for, but over here, I want to point this out. All right, so defense in Titan Quest 2 is pretty cool. Maybe I should make a separate video about this, but I just want to point it out real quick. We'll gloss over it here. So there's a priority system in this game of how it decides how much damage you take. The very first thing it calculates is going to be your glancing chance. So there's different kinds. You have a chance to get a glancing blow on projectiles and melee, I believe. So what's going to happen is you have a % chance to get a glancing blow. And if you do, you're going to take reduced damage. And you can actually see this over in your character sheet under defensive stats. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see glancing melee and glancing projectile. Right now I have 0 because I don't have any yet. I wish I did. But you can, when you do take a glancing hit, you literally 50% damage reductions. Absolutely huge. So glancing chance, I think, is almost a higher priority than resistances, but you are going to want your resistances to be capped anyway. I think it's pretty cool that they have a priority system of how the defenses are calculated. It's pretty awesome. Check it out in the tutorial. Lastly, we can talk about attributes. I think this one's probably pretty straightforward. When I first started my rogue, and even in the first Titan Quest, I'm like a point hoarder. I will hoard up all of my points just because gear have certain attribute requirements to equip, and if you find a sweet piece of gear, you want to be able to have those points to put in real quick so you can throw it on, right? But yeah, you're going to need to have agility is going to be your main stat here, primarily because that's going to give you cunning, which actually increases your poison damage. And you can actually see that over here when you're putting your points in where is it here? I think it's under offensive stats. You can see base factor cunning, and these numbers will actually go up as you put points into agility. Pretty awesome. You're also going to want points into might, not so much knowledge, and not so much vigor. Maybe I should put more into vigor so I don't get one shot as much, but honestly, I don't get one shot too much unless I stand in an AoE that I shouldn't. But those are your attributes. Pretty straightforward on that. And that's going to wrap it up for this Titan Quest 2 Poison Rogue Stormblade guide video. I had a lot of fun making this video and talking about this build with you. No, I got a little bit rambly, but man, it feels good to be back talking to y'all and just making videos again. Hopefully we can get more out to you soon, but that is going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much. I hopefully you found this video useful and or entertaining. If so, don't forget that like button and subscribe to the channel if you think I've earned it. Please consider becoming a YouTube channel member today. The support helps more than you know. But don't forget, your view alone means the absolute world. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.